Hello, everyone, and welcome to Aquarian Radio at aquarianradio.com. And I am your host, Janet Carroll Lesson, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Lesson. And this is another episode of We the Anunnaki. On this show, we have a very special guest today, Neil-Freer. And Neil's been with us many times before, but he was on a hiatus, and now he's back. And on our panel, we're going to the first part of the show, we're going to have Neil check in and tell us what's going on and how he is. And the latter part, we're going to have a little roundtable discussion with Robert Evans Jr. and Helen Parks, calling in from down under in Australia. And, of course, there's Dr. Lesson, myself, and Neil-Freer. So I'm going to bring on Sasha before I bring on the rest of the crew. Sweetheart, are you there?
Yes, I'm really excited about having you here, Neil, because we're going way beyond the data of the Anunnaki to what are the implications once we know our true genetic history and our place in the galaxy, and that's what and the philosophical questions that this raises. And there's no one better I know of to discuss that than Neil.
Okay, with that, I'm going to bring Neil on. Hello, do I have the right link? Is this Neil?
Here I am. Yes, I am.
Hi, Neil. Welcome back to the show. It's so good to have you here. I'm glad that you're feeling well.
Thank you, Sasha. Yeah, well, sure. I have to say that I feel, and probably because of a combination of very basic Western medicine and holistic Western medicine and alternative treatments and lots of supplements and Ursula's heroic care. And on top of all of that, add acupuncture and herbs. So I feel at this particular point that I have actually beaten congestive heart failure to the point that I'm 99.9% cured. You can probably tell by my voice.
There's more to your mission here in this body.
Say again?
There's much more to your mission here in this body. You're not ready to leave it. You've got some stuff to do.
A lot of stuff to do, Sasha.
Good. Well, I found that people who have some kind of mission that they need to do tend to stay embodied much longer than those who are just sitting around watching television. So we're glad that you're active and you're an active Anunnaki researcher, I call it. And you're here contributing. Well, tell us a little bit about what you have been doing besides getting well. Have you been continuing your research? Do you have any more insights? What's new on your end in the world of Anunnaki?
Actually, I did publish Sapiens Rising, The View from 2100 in Kindle format on Amazon.com just a while ago. That was the third book. And I'm in negotiations with the publisher in San Diego, Paul Tice, at the Book Tree, to put it out in paperback form. That's an ongoing, relatively pedestrian project. But one of the most fun things, I have to say fun things, but I think the most important thing that I've been involved in just recently is that C.B. Scott Jones and I, both 84 years old, got to the point where we were getting just bored and impatient that the revelations and disclosures and so on about the alien situation and the Anunnaki were just not coming forth. So we formed a think tank, and you can see that on the web, called CosmicHumanity.org. And so we, to give you an idea of what kind of success we've had, which is, and you're certainly not going to be surprised by this. We first tried to get any academic on the upper level in the entire United States involved in considering the alien situation, the Anunnaki situation, and our genetic creation, and to do serious studies and white papers and publish it, and so on. And why I say you won't be surprised is that we didn't get a single response over the entire United States. And there was one academic in the Midwest, a dean of a college there, who was honest enough to say to us, look, fellas, if the government who funds me came to me tomorrow and said, would you do these studies and publish them and so on, he said, I would do it in a heartbeat, funding or no funding, because it's the most important thing we've got to do. And he said, on the other hand, until that comes from the government, I don't want to even be caught thinking about it, because if I do, he said, within 2 or 3 days, all the funding that I have received so far for other projects would be yanked right out from underneath me. So, there's some hardball games being played here, and so we've shifted over to beginning to now work directly towards the heads of state and the Pope, the Vatican, and that type of individual and high official to try to work from the top down. So I wrote a letter to the Pope just a little while ago. I can't remember whether I sent a copy to you by email or not, but I certainly will if I didn't.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, okay. And because we've got to get this on the road before we destroy ourselves as a species.
Right. And of course, you didn't hear back from the Pope, did you?
I'm sorry, say again?
I said, of course, you didn't hear back from the Pope, did you?
No, I didn't. I didn't really anticipate it.
I'm still hung up back on your story of your recovery, and I really suspect that you had some help from the extraterrestrials or from the Anunnaki getting well. Did they intervene in your behalf? Tell me what you know.
I know very little in that sense that I had any explicit experience with that sort of thing. But on the other hand, when I was 12 years old and enlisted by the Anunnaki to get them introduced into the planet or back into the planet, they told me that because I agreed to do that, and that they would take care of me for the rest of my life. And I've seen it happen a number of times, and where either I was taken care of physically because I was ill, or because I was moved subtly into circumstances that turned out to be like, oh wow, it's so yes, I think I have to say that I feel their influence, and I'm very grateful for that too.
Cool, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we've been having a lot of shows almost every week unless we're traveling, and we have a number of researchers that have come on board, and everybody has a piece of the puzzle. And in just a little while here, we're going to introduce you to Helen Parks, who is one of our researchers from somewhere in Australia. I'm not sure what city. I think it's, anyway, she can tell us. But she's looking at the quatrains of Nostradamus, and so she's bringing some interesting things to the table, what she's finding in there. There's a lot of references to the Anunnaki and the major characters in the play. And then we have Robert Evans Jr., who is looking at the photos of Nibiru coming in. And so at some point here, we'll have him give us an update on what's being shown all over the world. People are sending in these photos. We can talk about that. What are these photos? But before we pass on to both Helen and Robert, Sasha, do you have any questions or things you want to cover with Neil?
Well, just the thing that really, one of the things that really got me in your books is the idea of exopolitics and what it takes for us to be able to do like A.R. Borden was doing, basically, to take our place in galactic society as a unified nation who can learn from but not have to be subservient to other alien entities. And I think that you alluded to Timothy Leary even having worked this out way far ahead of his times, and so I'm really interested in that.
Oh, yeah. Tim was, I have said probably to you before, I consider Timothy to have been the way ahead of his time. And he was the one that introduced me to the concept of futon. When I said to him one time, I don't know really what I am. I'm 35 and I don't have a handle on it yet. And he looked at me and he said, "Well, you're a futon." And I said, "Well, okay, what's that?" And he said, "Well, we know from our studies that 1.5% to 2% of the population at any given time are genetically programmed to be the evolutionary scouts." And he said, "Join the club." And so it's true. And I think that the futons are an element in the population who play a larger and larger part as we become united and peaceful and stop killing each other, and we can get past the God-spell religions and recognize that that Elohim, a plural word used as a singular for the one God, is incorporated and melded together Enki and Enlil, as brother Anunnaki alien entities.
Yeah,
and I don't want to get off on a big long rant here and interfere, but recently I've been reading very carefully and intently some of the stuff that you have been writing and publishing on the web and Facebook and so on, Sasha, and I am uneasy in only one thing that I tend to disagree on, and that is that the Anunnaki, methodically trained us to be savage and violent and criminal, and I think that by their own example, I think and the fact that they used us not only as gold miners but as soldiers and slaves and for many different purposes, that we certainly picked up the act like children do from their parents, but I don't think that the Anunnaki, particularly Enki, I don't think that he would be one, or Inanna for that matter, would be the ones who would want to see us turn into the disturbed, unpeaceful, violent types that we are now.
I think your point's well taken. What I'm talking about, you call it cosmetization, but I call it the generation of archetypes or ishidevas within each of us. So there's a destructive, warlike, competitive part that's all out of balance, and there's a peace-loving, cooperative part. And a centered person can embrace both of those, just as Anu basically was trying to get his two sons together. And I do definitely believe with Hardy that Ningishzidda and Ninmah and Enki programmed us to do better, to transcend the destructive, violent, emotional, explosive competitivism, that characterized their society. But nevertheless, it's been cosmetized into this warrior until the warriors find peace within. It's hard for us for peace to really begin, so to speak.
Yeah, I have to, I have to agree. That's, I think, a very good way of putting it.
Cool.
Okay.
I do think that the Anunnaki are very complex, just as we are, and there's many different histories, as there are people who are recounting it always through their own lens to justify their own position in history.
Yeah, and it reminds me of a book that I read probably 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, called When God Was a Woman.
Oh, yes. Congitis, yeah.
And that was, obviously Inanna's doing, because she took over the peak of the Far East that she did. And, if we want to know where Tantra really got inculcated into us, we only have to look that far. And so,
right.
So she could be quite frankly a bitch on wheels. I mean, she tried to get her brother, I believe it was, out of the Egyptian pyramid, out of the Giza pyramid, with a lot of heavy artillery and stuff. I mean, she could be nasty, but. On the other hand, she and Enki, as you say, I think had the better intentions, certainly, as to how we should develop.
It's very interesting in Inanna's temples, like especially in Uruk, the idea was to make everything so holy and sacred when people came together that they were going to create a wonderful child. That was her focus. It was partly reproduction with love.
Sure. Yeah, she was good.
Yeah. Right. So I think they were well intentioned. We've been looking at, Inanna and Marduk was her cousin who was in the pyramid, trapped in the pyramid. So they got into this intense hatred of each other, and we've been looking.
No, uncle, you're wrong. Nannar was the half brother. Nannar was a half-brother. Yeah. Inanna was the daughter of Nannar. That makes him as her uncle.
Okay, that was her uncle. Okay, so we got it set straight here. But we're looking at these beings called the Archons. Are they real? They're interdimensional. Do we have beings that come over and possess other, the Anunnaki and create irrational behavior? Or is that just part of who they really are? Anyway, we've been looking at that in many different shows, and we don't have the answers, but we're just, putting it out there on the table and wondering why did they go so ballistic with each other, and it was like they were insane. And, Enki was looking at his son and all his actions, and I guess Enlil was looking at Inanna, and then Inanna got crazy and she even defeated Enlil, and so, we're still reeling from a lot of those wars that happened, especially Sodom and Gomorrah.
Sure.
As a result of Inanna and Marduk's fight.
Jeff, this idea about possession by archons and stuff, it's very interesting, and working with people in cases of possession here, I find that there's always a part of the person that is receptive to the energy that possesses them. And so there were things inherent in the personalities of Nannar, of both Inanna and Marduk, that made these energies attractive to them, made them attracted to these energies.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Well, I have, up until this point, I have neglected too deep research into the concept or the existence of the archons, because it always seemed to me, as I read material that talked about the archons, that they were really referring to the Anunnaki in general. But I don't know. I mean, it's very difficult because some people have whole systems of mysticism where they use totally different terms for a mystical level, when sometimes it's very obvious, at least to someone like you or me, that has had all of this exposure and study with both the material from Sitchin and Lawrence Gardner and so on, we're really looking at when it comes right down to push comes to shove, we're really looking at a sort of sublimated a picture of the Anunnaki themselves. What do you think?
I think I tend to agree with you. There's and especially the size gives them away. There's big giant statues all over North America with people that had red hair left, and it's like they had a worldwide grid. Serpent Mound and lots of other places were part of this, as well as Tenochtitlan and Tiwanaku. It's like all over the world. Angkor and Indus Valley. They had a worldwide civilization. The Anunnaki, these big guys, were everywhere.
Sure.
And the descendants of KN, the South American Indians, they transported them in boats and sometimes in their rockets here and there. And Anunnaki all over, not just what Sitchin got from the Sumerian stuff, but the Hopi elders. Grandfather Mahudi, others have told me that there was their ET friends told them how to get high enough and where to go and what caves to be in and so forth. And so you can just think of this. The Igigi saved their kin, and the Anunnaki that were scattered here and there saved whoever they could. That's what it was like to me.
Yeah. And a book that I found amazing that I picked up on Kindle just a little while ago, I think it was called When Giants Ruled the United States or North America or whatever. The research now published in this single book by the author's name I don't think of right now, shows that there are that all over the United States and most of the world there are thousands, literally thousands of skeletons that have been unearthed. They were the mound builders, plus they were in the South and the West and all over the place, in South America too. And they were giants in the sense that the skeletons show that they were anywhere from 6'6" to 12 feet. And a long time ago, I remember reading somebody doing a debunk of giant skeletons. They said, "Oh, that was a movie set where they were ostensibly excavating a giant skeleton." But these things, this book quotes newspaper articles from way back. Authors, archaeologists, anthropologists who have unearthed these skeletons, and of course the what's that the scientific arm of the government over there in the
Smithsonian is where they won't let you see this. They won't let you see what's in their basement.
Yeah, really. And they were almost methodical about destroying these things. We're so far beyond Columbus discovering America in 1492 that it's totally ludicrous,
Columbus had Anunnaki maps that had been handed down. He had several map copies. He lied a little bit about how far it was, but he knew where he was going.
Sure.
So we're right here at the last show before Christmas, And before I bring on Robert and Helen, I wanted to ask you, what did Lawrence Gardner say about Jesus, and what do you think of Jesus? Was Jesus an Anunnaki? I think he was, but what do you think, Neil?
I think as precisely as I can nail it down, if Lawrence is right, and I have tremendous respect for his meticulous research and depth of research, he says that Jesus and Mary Magdalene both were Essene officials, and the Essenes was that community that moved out into the desert to isolate themselves, and they had a ritual where the men and the women, the husbands and wives, only came together at a certain month of the year, so that the children would be born of the bloodline would be born all in a month, and or in the 9 months following. So there's this whole tremendous perspective that has been opened up by Lawrence Gardner, in that he says it's quite clear that as in the second story in the book of Genesis, on the part of Enki, he wanted to create a line of kings, foremen, they were at first, literally, that would take the Anunnaki's place gradually as the Anunnaki phased back and off the planet. And so he singled out a particular human female for her characteristics, the Eve of the second story of in the book of Genesis of Adam and Eve. And that's where Eve goes to Adam and says, hey man, I've got a kid from the Lord. And instead of getting pissed off that she's out messing around, Adam says, oh, cool, in modern terminology. And so at any rate, that was the beginning of the Grail bloodline, Graal in Sumerian, special bloodline. And the child that was born to Enki and this human female, as Gardner points out, was Cain. And he also points out that the earliest Hebrew that speaks of Cain and Abel does not say that Cain slew his brother Abel, or that he was a bad guy. It says that Cain was superior to Abel, and but he was the first. Cain, from which comes kinship, and kingship, and so that was the beginning of the royal bloodline that was to take to be trained by Enki. Anyway, his idea was that they would be servants of the people, but eventually, and they were trained, and we see that bloodline show up in Egypt and then through the Hebrew tradition. But by the time it got to the point of where Jesus came along and was to be a king, as he told the Roman official, that he was, the Enlil's type was against it, and so we have the ongoing conflict between the Enki type of approach and the Enlil type of approach. And so, yes, I guess you could say Jesus and Mary Magdalene, both royalty in that line, were Anunnaki, at least partly, just as we are.
Fascinating. Cool. So I'm going to introduce our other people that are here. I'm sure they have questions for you and things they want to contribute. So let me go back to the panel here.
It would be interesting to hear that also.
What's that?
We'd also, since you kicked it off, everybody's got their trip about the stories they've heard and what they think about Jesus. So let's let each person give a nutshell of that, too.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to put on Robert first. Hi, Bob. Welcome to the show. Let me see. Did Helen here? Hi. Oops. Hi, Helen.
Hello.
Say
hello.
Say
hello.
Please. Oh, good. We can hear you. Okay. And Bob, can hear you?
Yes. Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Neil, I am just so glad to Anunnaki your God to hear your voice tonight.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember Robert. He's been on our panel with you before. Helen, do you want to just say hello to Neil and introduce yourself and tell him who you are? And then we'll go like a round table here.
All right, I'll try and do an introduction. First of all, I'm a nobody, absolute nobody. But for some reason, the writings and works of Nostradamus always drew me. I did say a little prayer in April 1980. Please let me understand these a little more deeply. Never ever expecting I'd be thrown in the direction of Anunnaki. First, goodness, that's where I live. The works of the hidden texts are basically gained using anagrams, and this is anagrams that have been given to us by those who engineered our language, and they have been coming true, all the words. So the personal things out of the way that they told me would happen, and all the worldly things that have been happening have led me to the position of having to try and explain to people what most people think they have part of the story, and the story that came from Nostradamus did not come from him. He was abducted, as was Da Vinci, and they were abducted by the people who did create Jesus, and the father of Jesus was Enki. Now, I had to recover from this as a shock to my system before being told what to do in order to understand this more clearly. Now, I don't know if you want me to continue in this vein or just say that's the introduction. I'm the person that's been working on the text. There are several quatrains about Janet, Wynne Sasha, and Glenn Bogue, and all these other people that I've been meeting recently. And the information to those people has led us always into another direction, which gives us more information. And it's basically we're the permanent student in that respect. Whether I should continue now or just say hello, Bob, hello, Neil. Really, really nice to meet you all.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Yeah, we'll
come
go
back
round
to that.
table.
Yeah.
So thank you. That was a good introduction. Okay. All right. So it would be good to address the question of Jesus with all the people here. Bob, first of all, do you have an update on the photos and your research for the group here?
Oh, yes, do I. A large planetoid-looking thing has been seen in our skies now for several weeks. First, it showed its wings in the sky, and I thought, and I still feel it is Nibiru showing its face for the first time in 3,640 years. The last time she was seen in our skies was during the Exodus, and Ippawur did a fully detailed account of it. So we've been looking at this image off and on through cloudy skies and through nasty photographs for a while. I've been paying for it in one way or another because I've been posting the images. And our friend Dawn Hull, she took the best images today using infrared, and they clearly show a second planet-like looking object just to the left of our sun in the skies over Washington State. She did several enhancements of it. I sent those to Dr. Sasha and you, Janet, so you also have to look at them. Anyone that wants to see these photographs can easily go to my Facebook page, Robert H. Evans Jr., and they can see the images. They're posted right there on my page. Everyone else I sent those photographs to today, I can't mention their names. They've also said, yes, that is Nibiru. Different people have been following it, and I cannot tell who. In fact, one of the people I know has been following it, Christopher Barbato. We wondered what happened to him after he did his report about the high-ranking Jesuit priest coming out of the Vatican and talking to him personally. Christopher Barbato is very in with the Vatican right now. He's their UFO type person. So our Pope also knows about this, as they have since 1955, when Bishop McIntyre, I think his name was, actually told the Pope, Pope Pius XII, about the aliens, and they actually started holding secret meetings. NASA's been taking photographs of this thing ever since 2007, 2008. So I personally have known, in my own opinion, that we would be seeing this thing pretty soon, and we are now.
So, Bob, can you address the question of what your research is showing about Jesus, if anything, and what you think it is? I'm going to start using the timer here so we can go around the table here. Okay.
I fall right in with Neil on this one. I believe the Grail is a bloodline. I could be wrong. I've been able to follow the Anunnaki with their wall carving showing what's called Cain's mark on their chest. And I've been able to follow that all the way down to the Templars, the Hospitallers, to the Freemasons, the Illuminati, to the Rosicrucians. So I think they're actually working in the background behind our governments. That's my opinion.
Okay, are you complete?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Thank you so much for your report. Back to you, sweetheart. What do you have to say on this?
Okay, well, this is really interesting. It's the way things have come down by the cosmetization, and from my perspective, personal perspective, and from college professor, I look at every perspective. But my personal perspective, it seems like Enlil was in charge of the society when and the basic rule was obey Enlil, and Jesus said. Was a revolutionary, and we don't have to, I don't think, give him some kind of special blood to know that he was the Mario Savio, he was the John Lennon of his day, and he said, heck with obey, love. And I want to tell you a story about Jesus that came from the Serpo project, Project Crystal Night. Now, these people from Beta Reticula area, Serpo, and this is well documented by the Defense Intelligence Agency information that John Kennedy made so it could now become available. That these are people like us. They have an extra digit on their toes and fingers, but in any case, they're called the Ebens, and they had an exchange program with our people, and they gave us something called the Yellow Book. And let me just read you a little bit about what the Yellow Book is. It's a small thing. Here it is. The Yellow Book presented by the Ebens is a gift upon their arrival in April 1964, displayed a remarkable technology. You place the book close to your eyes and begin seeing sounds and images flashing, depending on the particular language you're thinking. That particular language will appear. It also had 80 different languages and pictures appear. The story of the Eden's lives, their exploration of the universe, their planet, their societies, and their long-term relationship with Earth. Their first visit to Earth was 2,000 years ago by an Eben who took the appearance of Jesus, the first alien ambassador on Earth. Far out, huh? That's it.
That's it. Okay.
I will say something about the Ebens. Really good guys. They basically saved us from the Nazis after the Nazis had defeated Byrd in 1947 in the Battle of the Wattle Sea. Ebens gave us the flying saucer technology and beam weapons so that we could defend ourselves, and so Hitler didn't take over except through Project Paperclip, and they took over anyway, but that's more surreptitiously. I pass.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Helen, what do you find in the text about Jesus' quatrain?
Okay. First of all, of Lane Powell, I know. These texts have sent me onto an incredible bibliography journey of anything up to and before 1000 AD I've been told to study. First of all, I'll start with the alchemy list. I had to put together a list of alchemy keywords, and they told me what they were. And we go back to, it starts with the runic skies, that all constellations that we currently have are signposts. Shape, that's where the runes came from, their shape. And in amongst these shapes is one that's called the cup. And this happens to be Cassiopeia. And when you see hieroglyphs of the cup, it's the Grail. That's the Grail. It is the Holy Bloodline, but it's the Grail. You'll see the cup. Now I've said it, you'll see it everywhere. Then the Cassiopeians are aligned with 19 other off-worlders, including the Eben you were just saying, the J-Rod 52, not the J-Rod 45s. The J-Rod 52 was an assistant to Nostradamus in his stage gate, that he calls the stage gate. I'll talk about this later. And the Cassiopeians and the 19 other off-worlders, which include the ETs of the Hopi, they're the Arcturans from Arcturus, not from Boötes. Boötes are the baddies. There's, amongst the 19, there's one called the Leptoran. They're the ones underneath Shambhala. They're the ones behind Tibet and Buddhism. There's another story altogether. They come from Cygnus. Viraya, the beak of Cygnus. So this is the alchemy list that led me to the source of all these things that we question now, such as you guys just now questioning what is the Grail. It is, in effect, an in vitrum. There you go, in vitrum birth of Jesus was done by the Cassiopeians, whose symbol is a cup, the Grail. Isn't that fascinating? And they're all the same. All the astronomical signs of alchemy all have a meaning in a similar vein to this one. So the Elohim are, yes, they're the gods. They have an overall umbrella called the Andromeda Council. They call themselves the Regency Order, and that is the capital R, capital O in the text that I had to go and find out what it was. And they are priestesses, and they are extra-dimensional. In other words, they are in another time. The interdimensionals are the baddies. So that's another. I found some hidden quatrains about them, which I'll talk about later. Aleister Crowley was involved with them. And the Grail with Jesus is, you know about the story of the findings of where the cross was really found and how it was over here the earth. I'm just trying to think of the guy's name while I'm talking. He wrote a book called The Ark of the Covenant, which I read in 1989, and it was about the one-sided allele of the blood. In other words, there was one male chromosome and there were 23 female, and the male in the text, according to the text, is Enki. Enki himself was the father of Jesus, the Yeshua, who brought us the message of love. The way to tell the difference between these families is what they do. Enlil Yahweh is always the wrathful one. He's inclined to strike you with his rod. And a rod is a grey, one of the 33 different greys. And he's a jealous one. So who's he jealous of? He's jealous of Enki, the loving one. Enki has gone over to the Elohim. He has been with him for a long time, involved with the living library of planet Mother Earth. And Enki, it is Enki behind Putin who are trying to save planet Earth from the Western society, who have got the baddies behind them. The shadow of the shadow government is a kind of an Eben. It's a tall, talky white grail, and they come from Ophiuchus. Now, then straight away you can see a line drawn really down, a boundary line through our planet. It's kind of the Star Wars on the planet, but it's going to be a Star Wars off the planet. And it's a three-way Star Wars. And Michael Pillager recently found out what I've been trying to say about the Elohim. He recently found that out by studying, I had a scholar with him studying Genesis 1. Elohim came in Genesis 1, and Anunnaki came in Genesis. The straightforward facts in writing. This is probably the unedited version, probably. Then there's, what have we got here? Sodom and Gomorrah was caused by an Arton-class asteroid that was aimed by the Elohim, and we're about to go through the same thing soon again. And yes, I know about the Yellow Book, Sasha. I was studying that too. So where to start? Quantum physics, where they've taken me.
This pause right there.
Yeah.
What else again? So when did Sodom and Gomorrah? That was fascinating. And all this is in the quatrains of Nostradamus. Is that the main source
behind
of all this? Pardon?
Behind the quatrains, not the face value, not necessarily the face value. It's the hidden text, the text hidden in the quatrain. No one man with an ink and feather for a pen could have written. I'm flat out doing it with a computer, and I've been doing it 8 years, and I'm only about 20% through the 10,000 lines. He was given the work by the Cassiopeians, and the Father in heaven is called Ayes, A-Y-S-E. And when you go to the Cross of Hendaye in France, that's what the 4 A's are, A's. And Alex Collier speaks. I nearly died when I heard him calling them A's. Anyway, I'll finish there for the moment.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Fascinating. Okay, I just wanted to. Well, I'll come back to me later. I want to get back to Neil. I've been following the research of Glenn Bogue, and he's not here to explain it. I probably couldn't do it justice. So he's got some fascinating information on that Jesus was probably Enki and Mary is Ninmah, and that the virgin birth was just a twisting of the virgin creation of humanity in the lab. So he's got a lot of information, and he's got a book coming out which will support that. But I can't do it justice, so I'm just going to kind of pass. Okay, back to you, Neil. Do you have any comments? Do you want to start another topic? What would you like to talk about? And we'll go around again.
After a few ideas that have occurred to me as the others were speaking. One thing is that one of the cover-ups prevents scholars from learning the pure history, the simple history that's available. For instance, how many scholars do we know, on even academics with PhDs on the college level, Sasha with the exception, are aware of the fact that the book of Genesis is a skewed rewrite of the 3,000-year-older Sumerian histories, including the story of the flood and all, the creation of the human species and so on. And how many of those scholars are aware that the history shows quite clearly that Moses was not Moses. That was not his name. He was a Mose, a very important official. And it turns out that if Gardner's correct, he was a very important official in Egypt, and his name was Akhenaten. And he took a bunch of Hebrews with him when he was pushed out of Egypt because he was so unpopular. And when he went up on the mountain in the Genesis story, and that the Ten Commandments were not revelation, because anybody can see them in a negative form, positive form, as opposed to the negative expression of them, verbatim, just about, as verse or stanza 125 in the Book of the Dead, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, hundreds and hundreds of years before Moses. And so on, so on, so on. And we're kicking stuff around here, and also alchemy. With the discovery of the foundry on top of Mount Ararat, where Moses went up, and eventually met and married the daughter of the foundry foreman. They were making. There was the Anunnaki factory lab where they manufactured tons of white powder gold, monoatomic gold, and that was what alchemy was all about. And it's been preserved as a tradition and a practice for centuries and centuries, underground and covered up, until finally, just recently, David Hudson, the cotton farmer from Arizona, rediscovered it. And there is, if you go on YouTube, you can find a very excellent presentation by him that he did in 2011 after dropping out of sight for 12 years rather, because people in the Far East, some individuals whom he said have more money than any other person on the planet, they started to fund him, and they were doing tests and scientific investigations of it and so on in the Middle East, and there's 12 years of experience and information that's been acquired, and but he wants to make sure that it's all science before he presents it to the human species. Because if you ingest, if he says that if you look at the Egyptian text and what the priest ingested once a week behind the veil of the temple, it was the shewbread, and that was made out of monoatomic gold. And if you take 1.5 grams of it at once after fasting, it will pretty much turn you into a light body, and will give you telepathic powers, and so on, so on, so on. Anyway, we need to get some real scholarship going here and learn our history. And another very important point is that we tend among ourselves even to talk about Jesus as if he were of the New Testament, as if he were a real person. And the Jesus of the New Testament is a synthesis, forged together with fistfights in some cases, with the traditions that were brought together by the bishops when the Pope ordered by the Roman Empire to call a conference in 365 A.D. The thing went on for 2 years, and they finally kind of beat out a character, a synthetic character that is the Jesus of the New Testament. The real Jesus is of the heterodox line, if Gardner is correct, and he and Mary Magdalene were husband and wife and had children, and James was Jesus' brother, and that line has continued all the way through Western tradition, so that the endpoint of the Grail bloodline, which Jesus was in, the real Jesus was in, is in. Let's see, that would be. His name is slipping me. He is a gentleman in Scotland. Sasha, help me out here.
No, I'm not getting it.
That one.
Oh yeah,
one
you
family
mentioned him before. Yeah.
One family that has the cathedral. Yes.
Yeah. He's the current end of the product of the Grail bloodline.
Yeah, basically when they were King Louis made a deal with Pope Leo to kill all the Knights Templar and take over. Some of them escaped to Scotland. And just in time, they landed in time to save the Bruce from being defeated by Edward. And their Scotland remained free until their crazy King Jamie was brought over as Elizabeth's successor. Is that what you're alluding to?
Basically that's the politics. Some of it pretty seedy. No, not Sinclair. It'll come to me, hopefully, before the end of the program.
Helen, what are you saying? Hinckley or something?
No.
He said it's not Sinclair. No. Oh, Rosalind. No. Rosalind. No. Okay.
No, it's not coming to me yet. He has a very simple name. I've talked to him in an interview one time, and really a real gentleman, very modest. Anyway, I'm sorry if I got off on too much of a rant here.
Oh, no, that's great. Okay, where do we want to go next? Sasha, you have any idea where to take this?
I find it interesting to whoever these people were, and they were complicated people just like us that had different aspects or subpersonalities, but they've been cosmetized, as Neil would call it, into basically archetypes, which become the core of our subpersonality. So you take someone like Inanna, we've mentioned her, the granddaughter of Enlil, and she has a Kali aspect where she can be rageful and murderous. She has a Shakti aspect where she can be sensual and seductive and sexual. She has a Parvati aspect where she can be the mothering household kind of a person, so that these aspects of Inanna come into our being as the parts of us that are angry and want to strike out, and the part that is sexy, and the part that's loving and supportive. But what we can do with every single one of these archetypes is go inside and say, what does it need? So let's say the Kali part that wants to destroy things. We ask our inner Kali, why do you want to hurt and destroy? And you'll get an answer. Well, because I want attention, because I want my needs to be met. And that, I believe, is the key to us having peace on this planet, to realize that underneath what seems like unreasonable demands and wants of the people that are leading them to war are legitimate needs, that if we can reach out, as Jesus, I believe, was saying, and feel our empathy in our hearts, our love for everybody else, and realize we're all children of the universe, and we can meet each other's needs synergistically, I think we'll be in a better place.
I would add to that, to fill it out, that so much of those archetypes create in human society what I call the God's spell. Our God is better than your God, and if you don't subscribe, we might have to kill you. And so we get the God-fearing religions, which are Enki, Enlil type servants, and the absolutes of those religions are the very elemental and essential problems. And so we need to restore our true history to ourselves as and acknowledge that we're a genetically engineered slave species, and we are now going through racial adolescence, and we better watch our step in the adolescence sense and get past the Obama, I think, has a very good attitude in the sense that even though he's stonewalled out about everything he's ever tried to do as president, that he wants to show the world that every conflict, regardless of how severe, can be handled and resolved by diplomacy. Look at the situation with Iran. It is almost a done deal. He and the president of Iran are on a first name basis and phone back and forth to each other, and it's a lot better than killing your brother and beheading people and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, I think it's really important to differentiate between the heterodox and the orthodox. Orthodox religion is what the Roman bishops, who didn't have the bloodline and knew it, called themselves the Orthodox, and the other ones were heterodox, from which comes heretic. And of course, they also knew that the bloodline was passed down through the women, through the mitochondrial DNA, and so that's why they killed babies, and the Hebrews killed babies, and the Romans did too, so that they would try to wipe out the line. And then women, of course, the whole tradition of subservience of women and maltreatment of women comes from that tradition, because they knew that the women were transmitters of the bloodline. So when it comes down to the New Testament, for instance, Mary Magdalene, who was literally royalty and an Essene and part of the bloodline tradition, is made out to be a whore.
Right.
They that's the way they've been treating women ever since. And nuns are subjugated and treated like slaves. Anyway,
right.
Thank you for letting me vent.
I want to take this conversation in the direction of, who's on top of the dung heap right now? Who's heading up this planet and ruling it? We saw that they were creating the kingship. We still have kings and queens to this day. Something's never changed. The official line is that they don't have power, but we realize they have all the power. Elizabeth is absolute power. So, but looking at the Anunnaki perspective, what happened after Sodom and Gomorrah? Who won the war, and who's at the top of this dung heap? Is it Marduk? Is it Enlil? Is it Enki? Is it Inanna? What do each of you think? And I don't know, where do we want to go? I guess two would be. Okay, let's Helen. We're going to do 4-minute rounds. Okay, here we go. Helen first.
Right.
Go ahead, Helen.
Things have changed a bit. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Don't tell me I'm done.
Yes.
Things have changed a bit in 1930. We've got an interloper which has made itself known to FDR, and he signed a contract along with the redneck military involvement, and they thought they were signing this treaty with altogether 4 parties. One was Enki. Another party appeared to be a Nordic, but I can tell you it was from the Pleiades, but a front man for the Anunnaki, the Orion group. Another one was the so-called Grey, the Zeta Grey. And the humans weren't aware of shapeshifters in 1933. You'll hear people say it's 1952 and Eisenhower, but it's not. The first treaty was in 1933, and these interlopers have been underneath Area 51 one for about 800 years. They are the shadow of the shadow government of the Western Hemisphere. And they are Phil Schneider's tall, chalky white grail, who are doing something with our magnetic fields of Earth. Nobody knows what it is, and the humans really and truly should not have signed anything which they didn't know, number one, who they were signing it with, and number two, who's got the authority anyway to do it. It turns out that each of the other three of those theories were a part of a triad. A triad, that is to say, 9 other off-worlders were in that contract without the redneck military knowing. I can name them, but I'll name them later. Then the problem with this is that the religious side of it was an invention. Jesus was real, all of that was real, but they took advantage of it, they twisted it, and as has been already stated, the Bible has been edited to suit too many different factions to trust it. The new edition out now, the New World Order, or the new NIV version, has had 16 books removed, 2 that should have gone in there that didn't, so that's 18. That's Barnabas and Enoch, but I won't go into that. The entire problem is that religions were created in order to stop us from seeing what was really happening, what's really happening off this world. There's enough painting to illustrate to us that there is something off this world, and in basic elements, looking at different versions, and the people who painted them must have seen them to paint them, because one's in about 1000 AD, and one's in about 1620 AD, one's during the Romans, and they all painted exactly the same thing. This round Cassiopeian craft and a long plant-like, cylinder-like reptilian craft. And now those long cylinder ones are Al-Alu's craft. And many Muslims will say they have seen them, they revere them, and blah, blah, blah. They all think they're wonderful. But this is where they are using religion to lead us all up the garden path. Not the Elohim, not Enki, not the Cassiopeians, not the Andromeda Council. The Andromeda Council's purview is in relation to us setting off those bombs, the atom bombs that was given to FDR in 1933. And every time one of those goes off, due to quantum mechanics, they know about it in every other universe. And we are causing problems for other universes when we do it. But it's not us that's doing it. It's those buggers underneath Area 51, the devils of S4 with their in vitro. They're breeding super soldiers, and this is why we're having these police, all these soldiers and police who don't have a soul, or they're psychopaths and they don't have any empathy, and they're strangling old women and killing 12-year-old children and all that kind of stuff. And the basics of it are this three-way Star Wars is affecting our governments. Most of our governments are unwitting to these treaties. We've just gone into Treaty 9 and in trade in men clause. Trade in men. Let me know in 5 minutes is up. Gallipoli, this was seen. My own great uncle saw it, and I lived with him for a while. That's probably what set me on this path. As a 10-year-old, he was telling me about a platoon of soldiers who walked into a cloud, never came out. And that's why we go to war. We go to war, provide food.
Okay, Helen, let's take a pause right there. We'll come back to you. That's fascinating. Okay, thank you. We're going to go to Bob. Give him a turn. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay. Yes, I liked what Neil said earlier, and I have to back him up on this. The Colburn has a very detailed account of what happened during the Exodus, the last time Nibiru swam through our system. Ippawur was a highly trained Egyptian scribe, and he put down a very detailed account. Ippawur described Moses as being a priest prince within the courtyard of Pharaoh. Now, Pharaoh was a Hyksos, not an Egyptian. So as this person we call Moses led everyone out and up to the saltwater marsh by the Mediterranean, the destroyer was clearly in the skies and ash was falling all over Egypt. When they got to the saltwater marsh, they were halted because of the water. Now, during this time, tectonic plates were in motion, and he detailed it very clearly, not knowing what they were. He said the ground lifted underneath the marsh, and as Pharaoh arrived, Hyksos Pharaoh, they were allowed to race across the muddy marsh ground while the water wasn't there. So, very detailed account. Now, Akhenaten, if that is who I believe Neil is saying was this prince from the inner courtyard, Akhenaten, in my opinion, was praying to Nibiru in the skies, because on the wall carvings they show Akhenaten, his wife, all raising their hands upwards to a big round disc. Okay, that was Nibiru. My opinion only. That's the best I can say.
Okay.
I think that is, Bob. Bob?
Yes, Neil.
I'm going to slip out of character here for a minute. That round disc, to the best of my knowledge and research, was an early form of Burger King.
Okay.
Burger King?
I'm sorry. No problem. I like to hear your voice and hear what you have to say. You're one of the best people that Janet and Dr. Lesson have ever had on this show. You have the best knowledge.
Well, I have to say that most of the information that I've acquired has come from somebody else. It is not channeled. It is the insights maybe in breaking the God spell and that sort of thing were just normal residual or I should say normal resolutions of being exposed to the impressive scholarship, 40 or 50 years of it by Sitchin, and then followed up where Sitchin left off by Sir Lawrence Gardner. And then people like the two that wrote Cataclysm, Allen and Delaire. They have given us, they have given a Cataclysm. Yeah, they've given us such a condensed history of the and record of what the flood did. I mean, it was obviously not just a tsunami that came up through the Middle East and then flushed back out again after a short time. It was a totally earth-shaking, literally planetary upheaval caused by the passing of Nibiru. And so we're going to have to watch our back, because as it comes in, if we're on the same side of the sun as Nibiru, then all hell breaks loose. If we get fortunate and it's on sort of the upper side of the sun in its counter orbit, we might get away easy. Some people have told me that they have insider information that it's going to be an easier passage, and maybe the people in that new astronomical observatory right at the South Pole, where is the best place, of course, because it comes up from below the ecliptic by about 30 or 40 degrees. that maybe they know something we don't either. But we can see the elite building underground cities all over the United States and the world, for that matter, and we can go to hell, which is a bad pun in this case. They
right.
Yeah. They'll go underground.
Neil, we need to throw this in here real fast. The Hopi and their prophecies say that the third world ended by water. Third world meaning Noah's flood. And they claim in their prophecies that the Earth's rotation was reversed.
Reversed, yeah, okay.
Yes.
We know that there is record both in the Middle East in the Old Testament, correlated with mention of it in South America, that there was one day of on one side of the Earth there was one day of all day, and the other side it was all night. So the Earth's rotation was stopped. And I guess maybe the Hopi elders know a hell of a lot more than we do if they say that it was reversed. And there is a man by the name of John Moore. He runs this kind of conservative website called thelibertyman.com. And he was intelligence, military intelligence, and he claims that he keeps in touch with the intelligence people that he worked with formerly. And he says that they have told him explicitly that the Navy is telling their retirees to go, don't even think about any coast in the world to retire to, that you've got to go to 800 feet, probably the Ozarks, because if a big body, Uranus-sized like Nibiru, comes by the Earth and retards its spin for even a day, the miles and miles of water that the centrifugal force will, which piles up miles and miles of water at the equator, will let loose. And Florida could be inundated in a day or two. So that's, all these things are known apparently to the powers that be, and I think we would treat ourselves much better if we just went about our business about getting ready and not wait for them to make disclosure. And another point, I'm sorry.
I'd just like to say something that I've been told to put all my work in a very dry receptacle to keep it from getting wet and to put it underground. Now, couple that with the fact that there's going to be a hiatus where I won't be able to do the work, so I'm taking that to mean there's not going to be any electricity. This hiatus means that there's a gap, which has been told to me to be 5 months. And in that 5 months, I'm supposed to be sitting here writing a book about this, the actual quatrains themselves. They told me to do that. And what this tells me is that this is not going to kill as many people as what people think. This tells me that this is not going to be as earth devastating. I'm only 200 metres above sea level where I am, so they put me here. They're the ones that put me here, and they also told me that this land here in the middle of New South Wales is going to raise. So there'll be an inundation, which I'm taking to be a tsunami. South Africa's going to suffer greatly. Where Tellinger is, I've been telling him the dirt, the mud will be salty. He's got to go and do the cart garden thing, the aquaponics. They're telling him, get ready with the aquaponics to feed people. But all pointers say that, yes, you guys are right, we're going to be covered water. Yes, it's not going to be as greatly devastating as previous and former times. But we've been promised that. We were promised that. In Clay Tablet 10, we were promised it wasn't going to be ever as bad again.
I think I like that a lot.
Yeah, the ETs have their own plan. They have had massive space probes orbiting our sun for over 7 years now. NASA has been recording it very quietly.
I have read also in Jim Marrs' book, one of Jim Marrs' book, he reports that he has been told or researched that Greys, some of the Greys, are so concerned about the human species that they are actually trying to adjust our entire solar system, which seems like a totally mind-boggling concept. But
no, correct. They've already moved us 40 minutes so that we missed the 2 asteroids in December the 13th, 2012, and nobody noticed. But that happened in 2011, the 20 minutes plus the 20 minutes, when the Mediterranean clocks, everybody was late by 20 minutes. And if you'd been on the Antipodes, the other side of the planet, they would have had the sunny hour. So nobody was there to say, oh, guess what, we lost 40 minutes. The planet was moved out of the way of Tau Tartus and its companion, but they'll be back in 4 years. They'll be back in December 2016. Now, the other thing we've got to all keep remembering is that we've got a 377-day orbit at the moment, and we have to take that into account when we're doing calculations of any sort. That happened last October, and the asteroids that are coming, one coming this Christmas and one coming next June, are a manipulation for exactly what you've just said, to alter the other world, as I call them. I don't call them aliens, they're otherworlders. And the reason they're concerned is because we are them from their past. That is why they are so concerned.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
I have an article that says that someone over in France, very high up, said we have 300 days until we start having massive climate problems.
Okay.
And that article only came out recently.
That's right.
Very interesting.
Exactly. Next Halloween, remember what I said about the columns in the St. John of David Cathedral that were put up in 1991? Someone has got a Stargate, and they've been and seen it, and we've got Virgo upside down, and then October, and this is the same October that Nostradamus said in his epistle to King Henry, where everyone will think the Earth has lost its gravity. And this is the great translation, he calls it, and that word translation is a geological word, meaning Earth moves. That is to say, like a landslide, but he's meaning the Earth moves. And we can expect that this will be part of the pole shift in that late end of October, which then Halloween is depicted as a skeleton in the next vignette on that column. And then we will have problems with Orpheus, with certain people. They'll be coming to the rapture. They're taking people. This is part of this damn Treaty 9. So each one lasts 9 years. And right at the moment, my task has been to get Tellinger to tell the world that they took 324 years away from our calendar in 675 AD. So about 676 AD, big year one. And we are now in 1690, and that will stop this false rapture. If we can get the world to understand we are in 1690 right now, that false rapture cannot happen, because that's what the clause says. The clause names 2014. That's what it names, and we're not in 2014. So you could say to the devil, whatever naming him, but who is Lucifer, who sent someone back to the stupid Prince Otto, who was an inbred relation of Constantine. Otto goes to and he goes to Constantine and says, I want to be crowned in the year 1000. Constantine says, that sounds good to me, let's put an edict out. And this is in the Quatrains. This is not in the hidden text, this is in the Quatrains. And it talks about how Prince Otto was lovingly crowned in the year 1000, and the Dark Ages were immediately born.
Now, Ippur, I need to cut in real fast here. Ippur, in his detailed account during the Exodus, also talked about feeling the earth shift over, okay? And at the end of his account, he fully detailed what we now call a pole shift. Let me read exactly what he says. Okay, right here. The days of the years were shortened and the times of all things altered. The seasons were turned around so that the seed rotted within the soil and no green shoots came forth to greet the day. All buds withered upon vines, the land lay dead, its gray shroud. The moon changed the order of her ways, and the sun set herself a new course, so that men knew not where they were, and all were affected. The stars swam in a new direction, and the whole order of things was changed.
And now we have the Eskimos.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
The Inuits. They're talking about the same thing. Here's the last part where he says, my land is old, 120 generations have passed since Osiris brought light to men. 4 times the stars have moved to new positions, and twice the sun has changed the direction of his journey. Twice the destroyer has struck earth, and 3 times the heavens were opened and shut. Twice the land was swept clean by water.
Whoa.
That was his date for when we went from the 360 days in a year to 365, and that was done by the Elohim. They work in 5. The Anunnaki work in multiples of 12. Now, that was 705 BC, and the Chinese wrote about that. That's the last one. So this, coupled with a few other ones in it, the Greeks also lost 400 years in a similar fashion to the 324 that was taken from us. So this is where the calendars all get confused because, and there are others that got the moon, the calendars that use the moon and everything. And what you're saying there, and I'm going to lose my damn track now, is that I've almost done it because it was really what I was going to speak. Upcoming turning over of our planet will be, in the end, a 5,000 nautical mile turn. It will buck first and then turn. We've already had a couple of turns. We had a turn in December 2006 and no one noticed, but must have been only me that noticed when the moon was setting in the south. But that's beside the point. Now, the upcoming bucking of the Earth will have Saudi Arabia resting at the North Pole. Rio de Janeiro will be near the South Pole. Angola will be where Italy is now, and that is why the Chinese have built all those empty cities at Angola, because they've got stargates. They know, the Chinese, what's going to happen. It was called Prime Real Estate by Nostradamus. I have to laugh. He's got such a sense of humour sometimes. And how he hocus Hitler, that was funny. Yeah, that was all. That's another story. So the planet will turn. A Pine Gap is the fulcrum. So if you get the planet turning around Pine Gap, that's where Marduk, then Tasmania goes sideways. Sydney goes down to where Tasmania is. Perth goes up to where New Guinea was. Perth goes underwater, by the way, and disappears. Western Australia does. And I think that guy, Al Bielek, he described that too when he went into 2137 AD from the Philadelphia experiment. That's also discussed at great length in the hidden text about that, the Philadelphia experiment and all the rest of it, and people being sent forward. Now, the planet, the snow and cold that is happening in America at the moment will not go away this next year. It's been sent by the Elohim because reptilians do not like the cold.
Yes. And
the reptilians I'm speaking of are those of Phil Schneider, the ones from Ophiuchus. They're called Mavis, M-A-V-U-S, V-S he calls it. Well, I found an ancient document of Nostradamus' in a private collection. Everything was open to me when I was looking. Now, when I went to a private collection in Italy, it was all closed. I couldn't get back in. But anyway, I had to decipher the Latin. That was in Latin. And then I had to go and find out who these Mavis were. So Mavis is those shadow of the shadow government underneath the Americas. Mr. Obama is a clone of a clone. The current one we got now, it hasn't got a very long lifetime at all because he's been cloned too many times. He's the puppet of the puppeteers. He is no longer the original that was voted in. Sad to say, I'm sorry, who was it? Neil, was talking about?
No problem.
I'm sorry to say he's gone, the original one, and they're all just completing their task. But they just don't seem to see the big picture. The elite don't seem to see the big picture. They're being given opportunity after opportunity to repent. But we have to forgive them. We have to stand back and say, we forgive you. I don't really see the American civilization doing that. But to allow the elite to survive, Enki wants us to forgive them, but they're not going to be given that chance. They're going to be fried. They're going to be fried in their dung. They're going to be fried volcanically.
Okay, I was able to nail down the date for the Exodus, the last time Nibiru swam through our system, by the eruption of Thera, now called Santorini.
I studied it. I studied it at high school. I went back to high school when I was 55, and I loved it. I never had history before, and that one really struck home to me. And I knew straight away that was a celestial event causing that, and that was just a gut feeling. That's before I got involved. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Ippelwer describes ash falling all over Egypt during the Exodus. And when Pharaoh, the Hyksos Pharaoh, was fighting with the Hebrews up in the saltwater marsh, they were all stunned by a truly massive roar in the air. And Ippelwer doesn't give any time on blood stuff. Yeah, and he says that the water all rushed away, just like in 2004, and then the water came racing back in and swept away part of the Hebrews. He called them Keybrews in the account. It swept them away and washed them right into the Red Sea. Now, about 20-something years ago, they found Pharaoh's chariots on the bottom of the Red Sea.
Yeah, they're the guys that I was telling you about that found the blood of Jesus. What's his name? He's the one that discovered that the crosses were not put on top of Golgotha, they were put along the base of Golgotha with the advertising carved in behind the heads. And he's the same one that the government wouldn't let him do any more archaeology. And while they were at the Red Sea having a holiday, they found those chariots.
Yes. Now there's a stela that Akhmos I had created, and it still exists in the Cairo Museum's basement. It's called the Tempest Stela of Akhmos I, where he describes fairly clearly all the damage he had to have repaired on this stela. So Akhmos I became pharaoh about 1550 BCE. The end of the 17th dynasty with the Hyksos ended right at the end of the 17th dynasty. Akhmos became pharaoh during the 18th dynasty. So I've been able to nail this down pretty closely to 3,640 years ago.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I did that with the reconciliation. It was given to me by the Cassiopeians. It's on the website of the Hidden Text of Nostradamus. And when I'm an accountant, an ex-accountant, and very, very rarely, when you're working with complicated figures, can you get a reconciliation work out first time. And I was reconciling the zodiac ages with the Shahs of Nibiru. And when it came out, it reconciled out at so we're in 1690 now. I did it last year. It came out in 1689. I looked at it and I went, what? That's for real. We're due to have Nibiru any tick of the clock. So if you go to the Shahs of Nibiru, if you go to the Shahs of Nibiru and have a look at the reconciliation between the zodiac ages, you know what they are, and the Shahs, it came out a different blank. There you are, you got it. And it matched the 9200 BC date in the air vent of a major pyramid, pyramid, In there is an astronomical clock that someone has done, knowing full well it's impossible to do that clock when the pyramid was completed. It could only have been done when it was being built, and that astronomical clock says 9,200 BC, and that was that Shah. Listen, when we talk about these disruptive events or destructive events, we have to make allowance for people recovering, the recovery period, I call it. And when Hancock talks about 3,123 BC, the actual Arton-class asteroid that got Sodom and Gomorrah came through in 3,127, June the 29th, 3,127, 10 years before. And that's about how long it would take anybody to pick themselves up out of the stone age world right now sometime soon. You've got this recovery period, and you have to take that into consideration for every single destructive period. So you cannot go 9,200 BC, bang, that was the date. It might have been closer to 9,400 or 500 BC because it was written in Tablet 10 as being in the age of Leo rising, which was what the Sphinx was to commemorate, the age of Leo rising. And I had a small talk to Sasha about Ningishzidda, Hermes Thoth, being the face, the original face on the Sphinx. But you know what? It turns out they may have been a lion-headed people. They may have been, in those days, having a little go with their genetics, playing around with, because it seems after the Glenbow discussion the other day and me finding those things in the text about that painting Leonardo, when you do what he said to do in the text is with that painting The Last Supper, it becomes a lion. And Jesus becomes a lion with a phonet, Baphomet, on his chest. And that is the original face, I think, of the Anunnaki who was Ningishzidda. And he was a lion's face on the original Sphinx, which became later carved out by Hatshepsut, because she is a female. And Rolliston wrote about the Dendera zodiac, which wasn't found until the 1990s, which is how Hitler was focused. When the Dendera zodiac shows Leo turning into Virgo, it's the Sphinx. That means that the current face on the Sphinx is female. And then when Hatshepsut's pink alleyway temple was uncovered in that period too, and with a row of sphinxes, they're all the same face. There's only one engraving on a hieroglyph of the Sphinx, and it shows the female face with an artificial beard. That is Hatshepsut. You know where she sits in all of this. She's really, really important because she's involved with the Tutmosis and all the Moses. And
Helen,
then that 9,000.
Helen, I want to give everybody else a chance to talk for a moment here, okay? Because we're running out of time, okay? But we'll have you back, and I'll just have you come on and do a whole show where you can give us this, because it's incredible information. It's just I let it go free flow for a while because it was kind of spontaneous and organic and natural.
Yes.
You're having a
totally
great time. Everybody chance to talk. Let's give it back to Neil for a little bit there. Hi, Neil. You still with us?
Oh yeah. Yes.
Okay. Feedback, thoughts, comments.
I would like to see. Sasha, do you normally record this?
Yes.
Yes, we're recording it.
Oh, good, excellent. Because we've got some really extraordinary amounts of information here, and I'm sure that I haven't got it all memorized because of the speed that it's coming at us. But that's great if you're doing that. And so I can't add too much here. It did occur to me about the Hopi elders, Bob, with the in Cataclysm, as you probably remember.
Yes.
The Hopi elders, said that their tradition, their beginnings was that they clawed themselves out of the earth,
yes.
and that It was sort of some mystical thing. But when Alan... Pardon?
The ant people saved them each time.
Yeah, and they, what happened was that they went into caves and underground to protect themselves, and had to literally claw themselves out of the ground when the flood and the passing of Nibiru was over. Alan and Delaire and Cataclysm document that one, and
they did a good job too.
Yeah, they did. Excellent job. And also, the Native Americans apparently all knew, all have in their traditions, that once the cataclysm was over, white men came to give them help to reestablish themselves. Because yeah, basically, but I think they were Anunnaki. That went around the world and said, we'd like to help. Because
yes.
If Alan Delaire are correct, the human species was whittled down to like about 1,000 plus over the entire planet. So we needed all the help we could get. But please continue, you guys. I'm listening rather than trying to contribute here anymore.
Okay.
The Hopi prophecies tell very clearly that the world has ended 3 times. The first time by fire, just like the Colburn does. The second time was by ice, maybe an ice age. World 3, God, it was the same as was told by Sitchin in his Lost Book of Enki. The Hopi have prophecies telling about flying shields, and they were being used during the third world of the Hopi, and that the people then actually had trade routes all across the planet, and they had built many fabulous things that they have not seen today. Now, I'm going by the Hopi prophecies on the internet.
Right.
Okay? I'm not saying anything what the Hopis might have been talking to anyone else. I'm just going by what's on the internet. So the end of the third world, which became Noah's flood, was also talked about in the Colburn. And it said very clearly that the destroyer was responsible again.
Right.
And that the ark was closed up and the water came after everything shifted in the skies. Okay?
Right.
Now, in that Colburn version, it also matches the Lost Book of Enki. The Lost Book of Enki says that the water stayed high for almost 40 days.
Right.
The Lost Book of Enki said the ark was a submersible that they had created. In the Colburn version, the ark, when it resurfaced, felt great heat and great cold, just like the Cataclysm book that Alan and Delaire also mentioned would happen. So there's so many links between what they said would have happened, what the Colburn said happened, what the Lost Book of Enki said happened. I don't think it can be ignored anymore. I'm sorry.
No, not it can't be ignored, and not only that, but we're seeing the early beginnings of it with the Eskimos now complaining that the stars are not in the right place.
They are telling me that the Earth has shifted a little bit over 3 degrees.
Okay.
So that's possibly because of the thing that's incoming right now.
Right.
Because my friend Dawn Hall, she took photographs of it using a very advanced camera using infrared. And infrared removes all lens flare, clearly showing a something right there in the skies.
I saw that, yes. And remember that the major discovery of Nibiru in '83 by the infrared imaging satellite telescope was all in the infrared.
Exactly. Now, we actually sent a very advanced space probe out to meet, orbit, and return from Nibiru during the mid-1990s. That was told. Yes, we did. That was all told by Christopher Barbato when a high-ranking Jesuit priest left the Vatican and went straight to him and spoke to him. He is now a very high-ranking counsel for the Vatican. I found that out today from my contacts. Okay? So Christopher Barbato actually was given a short videotape by this high-ranking Jesuit priest, and I have some of the pictures that they have posted over the years on their webpage.
I see.
Okay? I also know that our last Pope, Pope Benedict, matched up exactly what Christopher Barbato and Lucas Cantamburlo told in their 2-hour video, Planet X, The Return of Planet X. They said that the Jesuits knew about all this stuff. So our last Pope, Pope Benedict, got on a German radio station and was just raising holy heck, saying that the Jesuits had an alien agenda, which totally matches everything they said before. So I think our new Pope is going to be possibly a official first contact type person.
I think so too. Yep.
I didn't mean to keep talking there, but I've had, just like you, I've had to research the holy heck out of this stuff since 2006. I've had to read things only someone from college would read. And this is all I know.
Really? Yeah. Okay, well, I see that it is getting late here, and
yes.
Where can we take this, Janet?
I kind of let this free flow and download. We didn't really have a set topic, although I did want to cover Jesus and Christmas, so we did do that for those who are here celebrating the holiday.
I'd like to add a few words about it's the Christmas coincides with the winter solstice to some degree, and like the seed of the rose that's underneath the snow. So it is that Jesus might be like our seed of love, which is the basic thing that he was saying, the seed of love that can let us feel our empathy with our brothers and sisters, all the other people in this engineered race here on this planet, and that we can actually really see that the seed is within each one of us, and that it's growing, and that as we approach this darkest time when things seem really dark, to know that even if the seed has to break its casing and no longer be a seed, and even if we die from this particular body, our next birth will be to some kind of gorgeous flower. So be cool. Have a good time.
Well, I'm going to take a little bit different tact. As you probably remember, I'm signed up for cryogenic suspension. It gives a whole new meaning to chilling out, and I've had it with I've had it with the diaper trip, and limited sets of parents when you try to reincarnate and stuff. So I'll keep you posted. But think Alcor in Scottsdale, alcor.org.
Neil, I agree with you. I really am tired of the diaper trip. I mean, I can remember standing up. I'm a very strange person. And I went, oh, shit, I'm here again. So
that's a bad pun in this case.
yeah, the diaper thing. Oh, shit, I'm here again. So I'm working on it. That's why I do this. I know that we have the cures for all diseases, including the disease of aging. Our governments have it, whoever they are. Let it go. Set us free. Let the information out there. I know you're listening, and we're going to keep on broadcasting. And that's mainly why we do this, everybody, is to get the word out and to open up people's awareness, and hopefully we'll become enlightened and conscious, because this isn't a nice way to treat human beings, is having us here on a planet that's full of diseases, and we have to duck and bomb, bombs and shells, and we have to worry about chemtrails, and is our GMO food toxic, and it's going to erupt in our stomachs and make us have pain and die, and so we're talking about all these issues. That's about all I want to say. Let's go. Everybody, final words. Helen, final words. We're running out of time. What would you like to say to our listeners before we sign off here?
Oh, what to say? Can only say goodbye. I'm looking forward to next time. But it is one thing. You've heard of Simon Parkes, and he speaks about the ants, the mantids. They're the same mantids that saved the Hopi. And the white people that came would have been part of the Taoiseans of the Elohim, not with Lakham's judgment. And that's basically just a tidying up on, because I would forget to tell you or say that next time. I'd really absolutely not remember. So goodbye, everybody. It's been really, really interesting. I look forward to next time.
Good night,
Helen. And Bob, say goodbye to everybody.
Okay.
What was your final words?
Well, the Hopi prophecies really hope, let's say this, not a bad pun there, that their fifth world, the one right after this one, they hope that everyone can get together and be very, very more thankful for each other, not like we've been in this world. So, because they say a fifth world and then a sixth world. So we've got a long ways to go.
Earth won't be here then. We'll be out near Saturn.
Sasha, final words.
Yes, this is a mathematical universe in a sense, and it all is balanced in everything. If you can just let yourself be here now, you'll realize that everything is exactly as it should be, and the things that bug you are the things that give purpose in your life. To deal with those things that bug you, and it's always okay if you can just appreciate the now and know that the past exists in your memories and your education, and the future exists in your expectations, but where you are is right now. My mantra as I run along this beautiful beach here in paradise is, good show, thank you. Good show, thank you. And that's what I think. It's a good show, and thank you.
Well,
all right,
thank you all, and have a great night.
Thank you, everybody.
Absolutely. Bye.
Okay, much love and blessings, and aloha, everybody, to our listeners, and we'll be back again next week with We the Anunnaki. Happy holidays, however you celebrate them, and Meike, aloha, and what is it? What's it? Male Kalikimaka? Yeah, Male. What is that, Sasha? Mele Kalikimaka. Mele Kalikimaka. Okay. That's it. I'm going to get exit music if I can find it, and we're out of here. Okay, here we go. Good exit music. Thank you very much.
Good night, everybody. Bye.
Everybody.
Good night.
Hello.